Thanks everyone for coming to Brew Talk San Francisco. My name is Chris Furnari. I'm the editor of Brewbound.com, and we've been traveling around the country putting on small events like this in cities like Seattle and Portland and DC and Chicago, San Diego, LA. We've gone to so many cities now, I've forgotten them all. But they've all been great events. We've had great turnout, and this is one of the best we've had yet. And thanks to Forrest over here, the founder of Speakeasy, for hosting us and agreeing to join the panel. To his right is Jim Woods. If you guys are local folks, you might know him from MateVeza or his retail front/tap room, the Cerveceria de MateVeza. I think they got like $3, $4 empanadas over there. I gotta find some time to get me one of those before. Just a couple of quick sort of housekeeping notes before we get going. I got this iPad up here, and I'll be fielding questions via Twitter. If you guys are tweeting, or if you guys are online, you can use the hashtag BrewTalks, and I'll get it up here, and I'll try to toss a question these guys' way. You can do that as well. And there's also a couple cameras behind you. We're actually live streaming the event right now across the web. So for our live stream viewers at home, if you guys have questions, feel free to tweet us using the hashtag BrewTalks.
Do we have like a live stream counter of how many viewers we have?
These guys might be able to tell you. I think we just broke the world record for live stream views right now. I just got the sign. Yeah, 4. So yes, we're here. Our first panel of the day for some of our startup folks and maybe guys that are looking to grow and expand is going to be a discussion about the key packaging decisions for craft brewers. So Jim and Forrest are going to discuss some of their packaging decisions along the way. A little bit different for each of them. Jim, with the MateVeza brand, sort of launched in 22-ounce bottles. Pretty typical these days for most craft brewers to sort of take the route of going draft only or draft in 22-ounce bottles and then progressing into more mainstream packages like 4-packs, 6-packs, 12-packs, and beyond. Forrest did things a little bit differently and launched in 6-packs and then added 22-ounce bottles later. So we're going to discuss sort of why and you know, what prompted them to make those decisions, branding, cost of goods, things like that. So I will, you know, sort of start with you guys. Jim, talk a little bit about your initial launch with 22-ounce bottles and, you know, why you decided to go that route from the onset.
Sure. I mean, I think 22-ounce bottles, the two reasons why you do it is you have sampling and then you have margins. As a consumer, it's less of a commitment to try something new. In our case, a beer brewed with yerba mate. Maybe you think it's interesting, you don't want to commit to a whole 6-pack. 22-ounce beer is perfect. So there's that sampling you know, reason why you go into 22s. And then also margins. The margins on 22-ounce are a lot better than they are on 12-ounce, even if it's a 4-pack. You know, 4-pack is a way to kind of game it in the middle, but I think that that's why you see a lot of breweries starting out going to 22s because, you know, that's a way to get sampling. You know, 22-ounce bottle purchases have almost become synonymous with having your beer on tap in a bar. People, you know, they like to explore the 22-ounce shelf and try something they've never had. So for us, that was important. And then also, obviously, the margins. You're able to really, you know, almost make some money on your first couple runs with 22-ounce pricing. And that's why I think a lot of breweries start off with the 22-ounce. They move into the 12-ounce, whether it's 6-pack or 4-pack, and they've got that economies of scale working where they can actually start to make a profit on the, you know, 12-ounce.
Well, now you obviously use a unique ingredient using the mate plant or herb. What's a typical retail price point for one of your beers?
Our IPA is $5.99. So, you know, and then our 12-ounce, I believe, is $10.99 for a 4-pack. So there's considerably more profit on the 22-ounce bottle. But then again, you're going to be moving. You've got 6 purchases to move through one case, so you're going to do a lot more volume with that 4-pack than you are with the 22 ounce. And then there's also the billboard effect. I mean, if you get a placement and it's a 22 ounce, you're only going to be there for as long as it takes to get through that case, and then they're going to try something else, new and different. So if you can fight for that 12 ounce placement, the margins are less, but over time you're going to do more volume, and it makes a lot more sense.
Now, I mean, I think we're the last craft brewery in the world to jump into bombers. We finally jumped into them, 2009, I think. And they do have great margins, and they serve us well, and we're actually getting a new filler in next week to do our bombers here at a higher level. But so we're making a lot of investment in bombers. So yeah, I think the time is better now than it was when we started. Yeah.
And just a quick note, we do have some brewing going on behind us, so there will be some noise throughout this. Yeah, an active brewery. So obviously a lot of considerations when you guys are sitting down behind the scenes, saying, how do we approach the market? What bottles, what cans, what package size are we going to operate in? So I kind of want to take a step back now that we know the history of your guys' companies and where you guys started, and sort of dissect a little bit the branding and marketing decisions behind those package sizes. What does a 22-ounce bomber say about the MateVeza brand, when you're sitting and deciding, all right, we're going to launch in 22-ounce bottles? What is it telling the consumer?
I think what it says, and I think this is probably true for you guys too, is that, hey, we care about the beer geeks. We care about, so I think that for me it was saying, hey, this is a really well-made craft beer, attention to quality. We're doing some interesting things with flavors. This isn't just, sort of a gimmick in a 6-pack kind of thing. And, from what I've seen with you guys too, it seems you guys have really re-engaged a lot of the beer geeks with your 22-ounce bottles, kind of back to the roots kind of thing. So I think that for me and for a lot of breweries, it's like, hey, we care about the tastemakers. We care about, the beer geeks that are, and that's how you reach them. Put it in their packaging for them to try it, and eventually you're going to have success with 12 ounce, or you're going to reinvigorate things with 12 ounce. But I think that really focusing on that demographic is very important.
How much of the decision to initially go into 22-ounce bottles was based on, or was driven by, your ability to capture some margins, and how much of it was branding?
Hard to say. I mean, there was a lot of financial incentive. You don't have to pay for, the 6-pack holders. I mean, if you look at the costs for doing 22s versus 12 ounce, it's probably, your fixed costs to just get those things printed. You got to have a large run to make it make sense. Maybe it's double what it is for a 22-ounce batch. So
margins are awful.
Yeah.
At low volume, margins are awful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, for us, just proof of concept. We want to see. I mean, I think that's another reason too, is put it out there, see what people think, maybe make some tweaks, and when you're finally hitting your stride, that's when you go to 6-pack or other 12-ounce formats.
Right. So Forrest, for you, when you're a smaller brewer, obviously I'm sure you guys have grown this space, to the scale that you're at now, and maybe you're able to realize a little bit more efficiencies and economies of scale.
Yeah, and we also, we produce our 12-ounce stand in San Jose. We have a separate brewery down there. So a lot of it is the quality of the fill and the economies of scale. The margins are better the larger you are, certainly. The bomber, going back to the message I think that you're talking about with a bomber versus a 12-ounce product, a lot of what you're talking about is true. Sorry, this microphone's driving me crazy. Let me back it up a little bit. I feel like I'm hearing myself in my head. The 12 ounce, we finally hit a wall. We got to a certain point and we realized that the 12-ounce market is a widget market. It just is. You cannot say buy a 12-ounce six-pack for $12 or $15 for a pale ale. People are like, you know what? No, I'm going to buy something else for $9.99 or $8.99 or $7.99 or $6.99, right? So what he's talking about is, the beer nerds. I think what it is that we look at it as a bell curve, and the volume of business are the flagships, are the 12-ounce, the bread and butter of the company, and then the tail and the head, i.e. the sessionable beers and the extreme beers, are where all the noise are. They're not the volume of the business, but that's where all the action is, right? It's where all the fun is, where all the noise is, and the passion, and that's what drives the whole bell curve along.
But in the middle of that bell curve, a smaller brewer isn't able to realize the same economies of scale as, say locally like an Anchor. Speakeasy will never be able to compete on price, until you get to their
And people
size.
can't fly, right?
Yeah.
There's certain things that are just known facts. Yeah, you're right. I mean,
so then,
it's difficult.
that sort of begs the question, why right from the onset do you say, all right, we're gonna go with six packs because that's our brand, that's what we feel our brand is.
Again, it was an investment in wanting to be in the chains early, to be recognized as a national potential brand as opposed to a boutique brand. I mean, the same decisions were made with our distribution network. We're distributed through an AB network predominantly in California, West Coast, because they are very, very good at logistics. The smaller craft-centric, what I call boutique distributor networks, are very passionate, but they're not necessarily as good at logistics. They generally don't have as large operations. So it's really about what is your end game and what are you trying to accomplish.
And
right?
for you guys to be kind of a brand that's synonymous with San Francisco,
Right.
just how you position yourself, you got to be the everyman's beer. You
Right.
got to be in a six-pack.
Right.
One interesting point I was thinking about recently is with the proliferation of a lot of the smaller breweries, there's a lot of people that are starting off and they're going right into 22s because that's the conventional wisdom. And 22-ounce sets are expanding, but there's almost more of an opportunity for 12-ounce right now. I mean, if you've got 6-packs and 4-packs, I mean, that 22-ounce shelf, it used to be like, you make a sales call and you're in there with 2 of your SKUs, but now there's so much competition. I almost think for a brewery starting out to go the 6-pack route or even with cans and the 12-ounce, it's like you almost you have more to play with just because there's less. With all these guys starting out, they can't play the commodity 6-pack market, but, I don't know.
And that was going to be, my next question. Nice segue to cans there. Is it a consideration for either of you guys? I mean, you're not in the can package right now, but from everything I've read and from what people have told me, if you want to play in that 6-pack market, cans are a much cheaper way to go in terms of, an initial cost of goods and an entry point.
Oh, you're talking about as a small producer?
As a small producer.
Yeah, and I think that was an attractive opportunity that we looked at one point. One reason why we were looking at cans, and we looked at cans. If it's done right, it's a good package. The reality, of course, that we all understand is that there's a consumer lack of preference for cans. And I love to tell the story about Guinness because I think Guinness, they were just geniuses when they did the whole Guinness in a can thing. It was the smartest marketing idea I've ever seen in my life. They said, oh yeah, you got to pour it out of the can because it's the widget and you got to see the foam, right? It's a Guinness, you got to look at the foam. So what did they make you do? They made you pour the beer out of the can into a glass. All of a sudden now your beer's in a glass. Did they beat you over the head with it and say you need to pour the beer out of a glass or you're not a proper beer nerd? No, they didn't do that, of course not. But they did they inadvertently tricked you into dispensing the beer into a glass. And I think that drinking out of a can is not exceptional, but it's a great delivery vehicle.
And it certainly allows a small brewer to start playing in that space for a little cheaper entry cost, right?
Yeah, at our scale now, we have a filler that delivers a much better product than really any canner would. So we kind of surpassed that. But you're right, as a smaller producer, it would be a more attractive opportunity.
And you got, solutions like, the can van, mobile canning.
Right.
where the smaller guys can play in that space, which is cool, which is not an option certainly for when I started and definitely not for when you started. So the landscape's definitely changing.
Right. You guys brought up an interesting point earlier about sort of differentiation. Jim, you thought maybe perhaps going the route of 6-packs from the onset now might actually be a better option for craft brewers looking to sort of step away from the pack a little bit. How do you differentiate with 2,500 craft brewers? When you're looking at these different package options, what options are there?
There's not a lot, but I think that the thing that Forrest was talking about, where you have your 6-pack, your bell curve, you basically have this set price range that you can be in. I think that is slowly going out the door, and I think people are finally stepping up and saying, okay, I'll pay $12.99 for a 6-pack of this double IPA or whatever. So I think that's finally starting to happen. But yeah, I think as far as differentiating, everything's cyclical, like a certain look to a label where you have, we always talk about how I want to start a parody brewery that just has all this sort of, really extreme, rabid dogs and explosions on the label, for your double IPA and stuff. I think that I'm starting to see some more sort of classic throwback stuff to maybe how things were in the, before the Bud Miller Coors domination, where just more classic design, and I think that goes a really long way. And for what's in the bottle too, you don't have to be doing crazy stuff. I think we'll definitely see a return to the classic styles with a little twist, and packaging to reflect that. It's not the apocalypse is not happening in the 6-pack. It's it's a beer. It's a really well-made beer, but it's not
right. And that's an interesting point. Are there specific styles in your guys' mind that work best for certain packages? Does a more crushable, sessionable lager work better in a can, and a higher alcohol double IPA work better in a bomber? How do you guys make those decisions? Does style ever come into play?
Well, are you ever going to see Firestone Anniversary in a can? You're just not, So I think
screw top bottle.
Yeah, there you go.
Never say never, Jim.
I don't know. So I just think that there are certain truths that are never going to change. That high end stuff. It's going to be in a bottle. But I think that. I think that you are seeing people return. The Kolsch is super popular. The Hoppy Pills is really popular right now. So people are kind of taking that. They're going back to the classic styles that you would expect in a 6-pack, but maybe just tweaking them a little bit. And people are willing to pay for them. So yeah, I don't know. I think that it's classic stuff, but just with a little bit of a difference.
Yeah, we approach it 12 ounce, again, being kind of more of a widget product. We want stuff that's going to be hopefully moving through the market within a relatively short period of time. The bombers, just by the nature of the way they're handled even today, we tend to want to lean more towards malt-driven beers, malt-forward beers versus hop-forward beers, something that's ageable. Things that are quite volatile we want to avoid. Typically speaking, that might change as we go forward with our new line, as the airs decrease. We have a new filter as well, but
do you think a larger format package sort of evokes that ageability factor?
It does, even when you don't want it to. Sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to stash this somewhere, and you're thinking, come on, really?
Right.
Drink that beer. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at breweries like Stone or Rogue, they've done a great job of sort of pioneering large format bottles, and Stone took it to another level, releasing the Enjoy By series, putting it right on the bottle, and that was a large format package. But both of those breweries seem to balance bombers as well as other packages, multiple packages, and you guys do it as well. Bombers in 4-packs, bombers in 6-packs. How important is it for breweries to consider having multiple package offerings for consumers?
You look at you look at Russian River where they have Blind Pig and Pliny in that 16.9 ounce slim bottle, and then all of their sour beers are in the cork and cage.
Exactly.
And I think that's a conscious decision to say, okay, these are the beers you drink fresh, and then we're putting it in a different bottle. And I wish that we could just say, hey, consumers, do your homework and know which ones you're supposed to put in the cellar. But I think that it's really smart for them to differentiate.
Help them along.
Yeah. And then they go on the internet for everything else, right? Can't
I mean,
figure it out.
But I don't know that you'll see that because the costs of running different bottle sizes on one line just don't make a lot of sense. And I don't like branded packaging really, like the bottle sizes. I would love if everybody used the same bottle, and maybe if we had like returnable bottles one day, but
too many lawyers, man.
Yeah.
I looked at that long ago.
Yeah.
So you're talking about screen printed bottles?
Well, no. I mean, in the glass technology in Europe, where they have the thicker, returnable, where a lot of breweries will share the same shape.
Right.
Anderson Valley they spearheaded that. As far as I'm aware, anyway, that's my understanding, is that they looked into that many, many, many years ago. The whole idea of using a returnable, reusable bottle, but my understanding is it came down to litigation. It wasn't the technology, it was just that somebody was going to sue you.
Yeah.
So I found a mouse in I found a ship in my bottle.
Yeah.
So would it be better that a brewery just has a laser focus on one package, or do you think it's important that they, have multiple to offer the customer?
I think that just if you make every effort like Stone does to say, enjoy this beer by this date. I mean, you couldn't be any more blatant, right? They're really saying, hey, this is vertical epic. I mean, obviously I'm going to sit down and have the last 5 years, or, I'm going to drink this one, by this date. So
we look at it from what the market needs or wants. I mean, like for example, we're going to release a Big Daddy 12-pack soon because our chain business is saying we need a Big Daddy 12-pack. It's kind of driven by what we need.
Is that driven by the distributor or driven by the retailer?
Driven by our maturity in the marketplace and what our competitors are doing and selling, and what our numbers are in relation to that, and how it all fits together. Where we all kind of jointly make a decision with the retailers, the chain, saying, well, I think obviously a Big Daddy 6 or 12-pack would make some sense, and then we develop it and we release it at a certain point. So
I'm going to ask one final question, then open it up to a couple audience questions here. Both being San Francisco based, when we sort of travel around the country, we like to, at least find something unique about each market, or at least, try to find something about a place that we visit. And there's a lot of independent, sort of up and down the street bottle shops or liquor stores here in the city. And obviously, you have that more urban consumer that, might be buying a meal for a day or two and picking up a beer on his way home rather than buying in bulk for a week. Does any of that influence the way retailers actually buy and their package decisions? Do retailers say, I know I have this type of customer coming in, I'm independent, I make my decisions, I want 22-ounce bottles, and lots of them, versus I want 6-packs? What have you guys seen in this market?
I'll start, if you don't mind. We are a relatively independent marketplace for off-premise, meaning that compared to certain other markets like Seattle, we have a lot of independent stores. This is America. So the folks that run the stores want to make money, and they do the best they can to make money. Therefore, they follow the American dream. Whatever the customers want, that's what they stock on their shelves. So I think it's a symbiosis. It's a little universe, and every bottle shop has its own little environment that it operates in, and I'm sure it's a communication that happens on a daily basis of what should be on the shelves or should not be on the shelves.
Do you see more bombers or 6-packs out there in San Francisco?
I see a lot of both, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you go to a place like City Beer, you see both. I mean, you see 22 ounce, you see 12 ounce. I don't know. I mean, it would be an interesting question for some of the bottle shop owners. How many people are coming from out of town, and you know, how does that affect your buying decisions? But you know, I know at our brew pub in the city, we get a lot of people coming in, and they love that like 22 ounce bottle to take home. You can check it or whatever, you know, throw it in your suitcase. But yeah, I mean, I think that for, you know, takeaway, I mean, the large format is better. And for, you know, your local market, I mean, you know, 6-packs are kind of your bread and butter for your local market. It's not as much for, yeah, I don't think too many people coming into the city buy 6-packs for the short time that they're there necessarily. They're probably more likely to have a beer at a bar.
Right.
And maybe take a special bottle home of a, you know, limited release.
Interesting. So a couple audience questions, one from our editor-in-chief here, Jeff Kleinman.
So I was just wondering if you guys could roll it back a little bit for some of the newer folks. When you went from 22s to 6-packs, or when you guys went from 6s into other formats, what were some of the chief considerations and proof points, you know, sort of indicators that you needed to make a switch, that you needed to expand, add that second line, and you know, what were some of the major challenges when you were doing it?
So the question for our live stream viewers at home is, you know, when you guys decided to add a second package line, Jim, 22s adding 4-packs, Forrest, 6-packs adding bombers. What were the considerations when you made that move, and what were the challenges when you actually put it forth into retail?
I think for us it was a desire to really push our volume forward and be in the places we needed to be to make that happen. You know, a lot of chains, Whole Foods, Bevmo, independents. I think for us it might have been a touch premature. I mean, we made it work, but I think you really need to have feet on the street, have a really good presence in a market to make the 12-ounce move. I mean, the great thing about home brewers and beer geeks is that you don't even have to do any research. You just put it on the shelf, and they're going to go out there and buy it and tell all their friends. But I think that you really need to have some firepower, some, you know, feet on the street to kind of push your brand forward. But, you know, so I think that it was tough goings, you know, when you roll out that 12-ounce packaging. For us, it was the 4-packs. You know, when are you going to get those approvals in line? You know, you try and do it before you have products ready, but you don't know. So I think for us it was a desire to push forward, and eventually all the product, the item approvals came through, and we started pushing it forward. But that was kind of the desire. I think it might have been a little premature, but we made it work, and it's been great for us, and it's definitely a volume driver for sure.
And how about for you guys?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the maturity of the actual conditions of how 22s are handled was a big factor. I mean, there was a day when it was just a scary business for me. Like, I don't want to put my beer in a bomber and have it sit there and turn, go 90 degrees. And we're actually, this is a take home, I guess. We're learning that in our world anyway, which I would say translates to all of our worlds, temperature is more of a factor than time. That we found that beer that is maintained at proper temperature for a long period of time can be pretty good. But beer that is exposed to high temperatures for a very short period of time is questionable at best. So even under great bottling conditions. So we're looking at all these factors. These are conditions. Bombers were not ever treated respectfully. They are now, so that's a factor. And the other one, or one of the other ones, would be, again, maturity. We needed the bombers to fulfill some of the desires that we have and our customers have in terms of our product mix. I will also say that we had our backs against the wall to some extent, where we couldn't make any more beer, and we had to make more flagship beer because the demand was so high. And making accessory beers or the beers that were not our core business at that time were, it was difficult to allocate the resources to do that, and we can do that now, so, yeah.
Did you ever consider that the 22-ounce package helped sort of legitimize the Speakeasy brand amongst sort of those upper echelon beer geeks? Was that
as I said earlier, I think it's about the communication, the chatter, the energy, the passion is on the head and the tail, and that's the Bombers fulfill those markets. That, you know, the people that go to Safeway and buy a 6-pack of Big Daddy or whatever, those are my people. There's no question, and that's me. That's my wife, whatever. But those people don't go home and get on Facebook and talk about it and take a picture of the 6-pack and say this is amazing. That's what people do with bourbon barrel-aged Scarface. That's what they do with you know, Blind Tiger. So you need that symbiosis. You know, you need all of the wildlife in the world to all get along and develop a brand.
Great. Well, we're going to take a short break so you guys can refill your drinks, and then we have Tom McCormick, the Executive Director of the California Craft Brewers Association. He's going to come up here. But thank you, Forrest, and thank you, Jim, for your insight.
Thanks, Chris.
And if you guys have questions, these are the guys to talk to.
Thank you.